Welcome back. An update now to our special investigation about unprocessed rape kits, both here in our region as well as nationwide. And we're talking about a massive backlog when it comes to untested rape kits. Now, during our special investigation, we gave you an unfiltered look at what many women go through after they're violated and why, in many cases, these rape kits, they never get the justice and obviously the victims that they deserve. Now, according to Human Rights Watch, anywhere between 200,000 and 500,000 untested rape kits are sitting in police storage facilities right as we speak, as I said, from coast to coast. And that means potential rapists roaming free, while the evidence that could put them away sits collecting dust in police storage rooms. Now, what's worse, many victims naturally assume that the wheels of justice are turning and the police working to put their attacker away. But without processing the kit, the wheels of justice, they grind to a halt. Now, before we bring you the latest news, we're going to take a minute and just revisit that special investigation, and our reporter Kim Lengel, who really broke it for us, she's here with much more. Kim?
Yeah, Rich, and you know, the situation you just described is far from rare. It is exactly what happened to Natasha Alizenko, who was raped at gunpoint about 20 years ago outside her Manhattan apartment. Her rapist remained at large for nearly a decade. That's because her rape kit sat untested for about 9.5 years. The whole time, Natasha believed police were doing their best to track down the man who raped her.
As I put my hand on this door here to enter, behind me was a man who pushed the door open further. I felt a gun to my head. Then he said, "If you scream, I'm going to kill you." This was not going to end well for me.
Natasha says she initially had no idea that her attacker was going to rape her. She says he demanded they go to the rooftop. He forced her to remove her clothes.
There was like a railing and forced me to bend over on the railing, and I can't tell you whether he took his clothes off too or how it happened, but he proceeded to rape me. We think of things like, you know, did you scream? Again, it's all about survival, and for me, I thought, well, okay, maybe if I give him this and what he wants, maybe I will come out of this alive. And I did. I did come out of it alive.
Natasha survived the brutal attack, but soon faced another challenge. Natasha agreed to allow a medical nurse examiner to perform a rape kit.
My body became a crime scene, and it was the way of collecting forensic evidence at the hospital, DNA, fingerprints, all that sort of evidence in order to eventually catch my perpetrator. And only to find that the kid had been sitting for 9.5 years collecting dust in a police locker is extremely frustrating. It turns out it could be all for nothing.
Now, when we headed into this investigation, we assumed that in this tough economy, money had some sort of role to play. And it does. It costs about $1,000 to $1,200 to process a rape kit. But believe it or not, we also heard some other reasons that are even more troubling, reasons that have to do with the way police handle rape kits. To hear more about that, including how Natasha's attacker was eventually caught, head to our Facebook page and look for the Special Reports tab. You'll see a button there for our special investigation on rape kits. Rich?
Thank you very much, Kim. And joining us now, Natasha Alizenko, who you just saw in the piece, both rape victim and a survivor of the Rape Kit Backlog, of which we profiled before in her courageous story and decade-long wait for justice chronicled in our series Unprocessed Justice. And for the past several years, she has been the founder and spokesperson for Natasha's Justice Project, which seeks to erase the Rape Kit Backlog nationwide. And tonight she joins us with a big announcement. Natasha, thank you, first of all, for joining us. And there's news to report, right?
Oh, certainly. And first of all, I certainly appreciate your efforts to expose what really is a crisis nationwide, and I really commend you for bringing this to the public's attention. Certainly, we are excited moving forward. We, at present, are embarking on a pilot project, and the goal of the pilot project is to choose a subject jurisdiction within the United States through a request for proposal process. And myself, along with a panel of experts from every discipline, from forensic science to law enforcement and, of course, prosecutors, will go into that municipality. We have some private funding that we're in the midst of raising, and we will eliminate their backlog.
So basically a precinct house, an area. How big? Are we talking about a city here? Are we talking about one precinct?
We're looking for a municipality. Certainly the language in the RFP talks about a municipality that has a lab, a public lab operating within it. There has to be a buy-in from law enforcement and from the prosecution's office, the district attorney's office, as well as an advocacy group within the area that can handle some of the issues the victims might be facing when they find out their kit's been backlogged.
Well, that's terrific news. And the one thing that I learned throughout the piece that really Kim did the lion's share of all the work on was, one, you assume if a woman is courageous enough to submit to this invasive test, as we learned through this, that the least would happen is the kit would be tested. But what we learned through this was, for a couple reasons, as Kim said, you know, police departments are having their budget cuts right now. It costs money, real money, to process a kit. And then secondly, the discretion. I didn't realize that if you consented to a kit, that somebody decided whether or not they were going to process it or not. But it's up to, I guess, the officer, the detective, whoever, to decide if they're even going to do it. And you know that the victims never know. And from your own experience, you know, it took you almost 10 years to find out that it was sitting on some shelf instead of already processed at a lab, right?
Absolutely. You bring up some great points. And initially, when I embarked upon this not-for-profit Natasha's Justice Project, my assumption was a money issue. And as I'm learning more, and let me tell you, there are a lot of people in a variety of disciplines that are passionate about this, including law enforcement officials, who are recognizing that sometimes there is a selective process involved. If they don't believe the complaining witness or the victim of the crime is particularly credible, perhaps they won't prosecute. We're really fortunate in New York City and the greater New York, you know, the NYPD they really just do a phenomenal job. In New York City, they have a 90-day turnover rate. The prosecutors really go forward with the victim. They work very well with the victims.
But New York's the exception here, right?
Absolutely.
You go across this country, not every state's like New York, let alone New York City.
Absolutely. Even within New York State, we were finding through a research program we embarked upon with Stony Brook University, we were finding out things like even within New York State, jurisdictions aren't reporting, or they won't test kits that, for example, where the perpetrator is unknown. So it's almost like this technology, which is really the fingerprint of today, is growing so much faster than we're capable of handling, not only in terms of our knowledge base, but infrastructure.
And Kim, you explain, even if somebody at home for some reason, I would think the vast, vast majority says this is wrong, you got to change it. Even if they said, well, you know, I don't know the victims. There's people walking around that could be matched up in a database that are really, really bad people doing terrible things that could hurt more innocent people out there. It's in the public safety interest to get these kids tested.
Absolutely, and that's what's so important about Natasha's project and the way she set it up with the RFP. It's not about pointing fingers. It's not about saying the police department has done something wrong by creating this backlog. The stumbling block for you guys, as you mentioned to me, is going to be the buy-in, getting the police and the DA's office to, you know, come together and agree to get rid of this backlog. That's going to be the tough part.
That's absolutely right. If you look at jurisdictions that are doing a really great job with their backlog, it's because there's this almost like harmonious effort between law enforcement and the district attorneys. That relationship is essential, because DNA now, you know, initially it was really used in prosecution. This is definitely this person. And really, police are now able to use it as an investigative tool. As you mentioned, with these profiles, they're uploading into CODIS, which is like the equivalent of the fingerprint database. And now you're able to find these perpetrators to this match. And
you could be able to get a conviction just sitting on the shelf. You just got to process the kit. Well,
absolutely.
Natasha, thank you so much. And for more information on both our series on Unprocessed Justice, head to our Facebook page, facebook.com/RichardFrenchLive, and click on the Special Reports tab to navigate to this section. And from there, please visit Natasha's website, where you can find out much more about our pilot project, which you just described tonight, and also how you can get involved, because they can certainly use your help. We'll be right back, everyone, so please stay with us.